And it looks like we are live. Hello and welcome. Let's see, click here at any time to view posts on YouTube. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live with a New Leaf Data webinar. And I'm Daniel Shanahan. I'm the owner of New Leaf Data. As you come into the room, please say hello and tell me where you're from. That would be helpful. And as we get started, I'm going to wait for a few people to get into the room. I'm also going to turn over to my left just to check. I have a laptop and I'm checking to see how the feed is coming through from YouTube. And I think I just paused the webinar. I didn't mean to do that. I'm trying to find out who's in the room. I'm using something called Ecamm Live. I'm still trying to figure that out. And I see that people are in the room, and but I can't see them. Let's see. Okay. Well, I can see that I'm pushing buttons on Ecamm Live. I'm trying to find out who's in the room, and I'm having a hard time doing that. But the internet connection cuts out, so I apologize for that. It's really not a great way to start a webinar. It looks like we have 4 people in the room. I thought I saw it up to 6, and if you are commenting, I'm not able to see it. Let me move this over. So anyways, thanks for your patience. Certainly, thanks for your interest in this topic. This has it's an interesting topic for me. Once I got into it, I found it to be more complex than I realized. So let me go through and say, once again, as you come into the room, drop me a chat, drop a note in the chat and to say hello and tell me where you're from. I'd love to see where people are coming in from. In the meantime, here's our little schedule here. And what I want to do, I'll do some preliminary information, and then I want to talk about a data source. When I was researching this idea of item valuation, FIFO, LIFO, moving average, I scoured the internet and I looked at a bunch of YouTube videos. So I want to take you there. It was in the email, but I want to take you there and credit the source of that information. And so after that, we're going to take a look at the data. And then I want to review the process in Google Sheets. It's really the last part of this webinar that I'll actually open up FileMaker and show how it works in FileMaker. But I believe this needs to happen. I believe in happening in FileMaker. I apologize. It looks like my internet connection is not strong enough. It looks like I'm getting kicked off. So I have to resume the webinar in Ecamm Live. I'm imagine that's frustrating for you. It's not much of a picnic for me either, so I apologize for that. Looks like Patrick is here. Welcome, Patrick. And let's see. So let's get started with this. Some preliminary information. For people who are not familiar, my company is New Leaf Data, and I focus on inventory management systems on the FileMaker platform. And I have created a couple of websites. The first website is I'm sorry, I keep getting bounced, and shucks, I'm not sure what to do about that. I'm going to keep going on. The webinar will be recorded. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's frustrating. Sorry about that. anyways, in addition to to the articles and the files, there's a place down here to join the newsletter, and then over here I have some more in-depth courses. I have a free FileMaker FM Inventory Starter, and along with that I have a couple of courses on various topics on inventory management on the FileMaker platform. So that's what that is, and yeah, so that's just the preliminary information. I want to talk now about the data source. The first thing to say is what we're trying to do is we're trying to come up with a way that we can clarify the cost for our product. And mostly this comes in the cost of goods sold. It's an accounting number that you'll need. And so how do we get that number? That's the issue we're trying to solve. Let me get rid of those. There are 7 ways that you can get this number. We're not going to do the 7th way. The 7th way, a Sting song just popped into my head. The 7th way is if you're using serial numbers, and so when the serial number comes in, I bounced out again, so I apologize for that. But the other 6 ways are perpetual and periodic, and there's a FIFO, first in, first out, LIFO, last in, first out, and an average. And this can happen in a perpetual way and a periodic way. And a new course is coming in FM Inventory Starter that will take a look at all 6 of those methods, and they'll each have their own file. I keep having to reboot. What I really needed was I needed a data set that would show me. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the fact that I have to reboot. Let me just go through and show you what I have here for the data set. This is a series of webinars by this guy, Professor Alldredge. I don't know this guy. He teaches accounting somewhere out west. But I like his videos a lot, and he goes through the process of explaining where the costs are supposed to go. So if you haven't already, it would be worth your time to take a look and see how he's doing it on paper. I am not showing my screen. Once again, I'm a webinar noob, and okay. So now that I've shown my screen, this guy, Professor Alldredge, has these videos, these 6 videos, and they go through the perpetual and the periodic, LIFO, FIFO, and average. So it would be worth your time to take a look at these and see how he goes through and he does this by hand. So he has the data set up here. That's a little bit messy. He has this data set up here for purchases and the sales, and then he mixes them down here in a T account. And he has the credits on the right and the debits on the left. This Google Sheet will be available. I'll make it into an Excel sheet, and this will be part of the course. Everybody is going to have a chance to get this course for free. This will be a new course on FM Inventory Starter. It will be free, and I'll give you a code at the end of this. And so it'll be a limited time. You won't have access to it. Once you get it for free, you'll always have it for free, but it will be free for the first 14 days or something like that. I haven't figured that piece out. But on this first tab of the spreadsheet are all of the links for Professor Alldredge. He uses the same data set. That was really helpful for me. He uses the same data set to make to go through all this set. Here on this first tab is the data set. This is the same thing that he has in his video. It's just in a spreadsheet. So these are the same purchases. These are the same sales. He created a T account. I just put all of these in line so that the data set is created by date. The sequential date is important for the perpetual. And so here are all the activities as we go from sales and purchases. Same data set. And from this data set that he already has, he has come to these conclusions are his, so we know what the ending inventory value is, we know what the cost of goods sold is, and we know what that is for first in, first out, for last in, first out, and the weighted average. Sometimes I say weighted average, sometimes I say moving average. I'll try maybe just say average. I've heard it as both, and I don't know if one is more correct than the other. Let's see, and then down here in the periodic, it's the same thing. We have an ending inventory value and a cost of goods sold. I have a little glossary over here that could be helpful too. So that's the process there. Let's see, hopefully, hopefully that's going okay. It looks like it's going okay on the computer to the right. Again, if you're just joining us, I apologize. The internet connection here is spotty, so I've gotten kicked off a couple of times. So hopefully you've been able to join the webinar. When you are able to join the webinar, leave a comment, say hello. That's helpful. Let's see. So now what I've done here on all of these tabs, what I wanted to do is in Professor Alldredge's method, he goes through all of these and he does it by hand. I wanted to translate what he's doing on paper, and I wanted to translate that to something in the, by hand, to Google Sheets, to a spreadsheet. So that's what I have here. And let's see, I'm sorry, if you could, hello from Belgium. Hi, Pascal. If you can, I'm sorry, if you can hear me, I didn't do a check on this, but if you can verify that my sound is coming through, that would be helpful too. So I'll just keep plugging away here. What happens in this part of the spreadsheet is I've taken each process and broken it down into steps, and so each part of the process is repeated. So let's look at this first. We have a beginning inventory. That's the first thing we have, and then the next thing we have is a sale. And so you could see that first line is repeated. That beginning inventory is repeated. And we have a couple of pieces of information that's helpful too. We have we have the ID. This is a made-up number in the spreadsheet, but this would be the record ID of the item valuation log. There's a transaction ID associated with it, so that would be there. The process ID. This is the process ID. The process ID is that it's either a sales order or a purchase order, and so that's where that comes from. Window may be large, easier to read. Okay, thanks, Pascal. That sound is fine. Thank you. Yeah, and I also realize I don't have you can't see my face. Yeah, that could be a blessing. I don't know. Window may be large, easier to read. I think maybe you're asking me to make the window larger, which I'll do here. But I wanted to focus on this part that it's at each step along the way, it's just taking a piece and a piece and a piece and moving it along the process. So for the first part, we have zoom in a little bit. I wonder if I can zoom in. Oh, I see. Window is large. Oh, yeah. That's a great point, Pascal. How can I do that? How's that? Let's see. That might take a few seconds to show. Here we go. Yeah, okay. Let's try that. Let me go back. I'm sorry about this. I'm feeling scattered here. Let me go back and talk about these header items a little bit more. So the process ID would be, if it's a sales order, it's that ID. If it's the purchase order, and then there's a human readable number to it as well. This SOI VLID, this is there'll be, and we'll see it in a minute. There's references made for the sales order inventory value line ID. It's self-referential, and when it's a sales order, it would go here, and when it's a purchase order, it goes here. The date is the date of the transaction. The item ID, this is a random number that I just put in the spreadsheet, but that would identify the item. Again, the type, beginning inventory. On the T account, it's either going to be a debit or a credit. The ending inventory count is here. This will change, and the initial quantity is here, and that will stay the same. So it's always going to be the same as it starts out, and then it will change. Cost per unit, that's going to be on a beginning inventory and on purchased inventory, and then the ending inventory value is simply the ending inventory multiplied by the cost per unit. The date zeroed is the date that this ending inventory becomes zero, because we're going to work that down we're going to work it down to a zero, and we'll see that in a minute. And then some other ending inventories repeated here, what the ending inventory is and the cost of ending inventory, and sold inventory and cost of goods sold. After that, we great, thanks, Pascal. That's helpful. That's helpful information. That it's much better. I'm glad. Let's see. So then on step 2, we have a sale. The sale has a credit, and then in step 2.1 is what has to happen for the adjustment, and then that's what this line is here. So the sale is pretty self-explanatory. Well, let me just go through the sale a little bit here. So the sale we would say the sale has a, here's the sales order, and that's the ID for the sales order, happens on this date. Again, these dates and these quantities are all taken from Professor Alldredge. Have the sale, and now we can see that our ending inventory changed because we have 800 and now we only have 200, and we sold 600, so now we have 200. And now we have the cost of ending inventory. And then when we go down here, so when we make a sale, we want to find out how much, what was the cost for that sale. Now the first one is pretty easy because we had 800 and we sold 600. So and the 800 had the same cost. It was $3.20. So that's pretty easy. So we just need one line for our adjustment. And we know that the cost for that transaction was $3.20. We'll go through when we purchase more. We're adding inventory to our stock, and then again all of this is repeated. So these are all building on the last one. Now we have we're selling 1,600. Now here's where the FIFO and the LIFO and the weighted average, this is where it's beneficial, because now what we have is we're selling 1,600 items, but those 1,600 items don't have a unified cost. Those items cost different amounts for us, and we want to track that. And so that's what this line here does. So we could say that we had 200. Well, let me go back up here. When we noticed that we had 800 initially, it's probably up here. We noticed that we had 800 initially, and then when we took away 600, our ending inventory was 200. So when we come down here, we're going to take that 200 that was at a cost of $3.20, and we're going to make a line so that we know where that comes from. And here's the reference that tells us that. This POIVLID, Purchase Order Inventory Value Line ID. That's going to point to this line here. So we got this 200 from this line. And we're working, this sales order inventory value line ID is telling us that we're working on this line. So we get 200 from here, and now we need another 1,400. And so we could go back to this purchase. This originally had 2,200. And so that we could grab our 1,400 from that 2,200. And that has a different cost. And so we need these two lines to clarify what our cost is. Another purchase happens. Another sale happens. After that sale, we need a couple of line items for that, for the adjustment. Same thing that we just did before. We made a sale of 1,000, but we don't have 1,000 at a single cost. So we have to take out the cost in increments. And in FIFO, so we're working on first in, first out. How we figure out the cost is we go to the top to see what's available first from our first purchases, from our early purchases. So we have a purchase up here. So we want to we sold 1,000. This was really a purchase of 2,200, but there's 800 left over. So we're going to take all of those 800 to help fulfill our 1,000. That's going to be at a cost per unit of $3.10. And that's going to zero that out. So we come back down here, and that's now zeroed out. Our 2,200 is gone at that price. That's been zeroed out. Here's our date for that. And we have this line, this FIFO adjustment line. And that tells us where this value comes from. This 800 at 310, it comes from this ID. This is self-referential, which is right here. Now we need another 200, so we'll go down to the next purchase. Let's see, we would be up here at area 800, and then at the next purchase we would grab it here from this 1,200. We take away 200, that's going to leave 1,000. We do that again for 400. 400 can be pulled from let's see, 936. So we could pull it from this line here, right above here, 936. We sold 400, we have 1,000 in there. Then another purchase of 1,800, then another sale, 1,400. The same thing happens here. Then another purchase, then another sale, and until we get down to the end of the data, and then we have our numbers. We know that our cost of goods sold is $16,740. We know that the units sold was 5,200. We know our ending inventory is 1,300, and we know that our ending inventory value is 4,470. And that's what we have here. Those are the values we have here. And once again, that's the data that is just the same data that we have right here. And that's what that looks like in the spreadsheet as it sort of expands or explodes. And let's see. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is move on from, so that took about a half hour to get all of that information. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to show how I have that. Now the same thing is true for Perpetual, sorry, for LIFO. It's just that the value is taken from the most recent purchase rather than the first purchase. And moving average is going to be an average. But I want to stay with FIFO for the moment, and I want to switch over to FileMaker, and I want to show how, at least in this file that I have, that it works. Okay, let's see what I have. Okay, here, let me move some things off screen. I have a couple of, we'll take a look at 3 layouts primarily. I have a purchase order layout, a sales order layout, and I have this item valuation log layout. The purchase order and the sales order, the data is already pre-populated. I have the date of the purchase order and the quantity and the cost for the purchase and then the quantity, the date, and the quantity for the sales order. And again, this is the exact same data that we have from Professor Alldredge. And the advantage of that is that the advantage to me was as I created the spreadsheet, I could see if it was correct or incorrect based on his numbers when I watched his videos. And then when I created the FileMaker file, I could see if my numbers were correct based on the spreadsheet that I created. So hopefully that makes sense. So what we're going to do is here's our item valuation log. The item valuation log, I feel compelled to say this. It is cramped. I would never, in a production, I would never show this many fields. There's too many fields on here, and there's no, and they're at the border. So like this ID field is all the way at the border. There's no gutter on there. So but I wanted to show all the IDs. Really, in production, I would put all those IDs in a popover menu, probably something where you don't need to see all of those all the time. Yeah, and I might do it in a future version of this, but I wanted to have everything on here. And so we start out with a beginning inventory, 800, just like we did in the spreadsheet. And then we'll go through a period of moving through the purchases and then going through the sales and then seeing how those are created here. Now I should say, I didn't say this at the top of the webinar, but I should say I'm not planning on going into the Script Workspace. I'm not planning on delving deep into these. But I will make some videos, and the videos will be part of the course where I will go into the Script Workspace and explain how the scripts work, and the files will be available. And again, you will have access to a free account you will have access to this course for free, and I'll give you that information at the end of the webinar. Okay, I feel like I've talked a lot. Before I start going into this, any questions from the group? How are people hanging in? Okay, let's keep going then. Then I have off screen, I have my list of what's happening. Well, I think the screen's going to be too big. So the first thing we have is we have our 800, so that's fine. And then the next thing we have is a sale of 600. So I'll come over here and let me get myself all set up here. So on my sales, there's a trigger on this field, and so all I need to do to get this thing to work is to get that trigger to go. Well, that's not a good sign. What is going on there? I'm in a loop. I didn't set something correctly. Okay, well, here is this is the live coding behind the scenes that you never want people to see. Oops, I don't want that. I want this one. Oh, date 0. So there's a few. There are a few things I have to do to set this up correctly. and I missed something on that, so that should be I had this line zeroed out from when I was testing before the webinar. Okay, so let's go back to this. Sales order, yeah, okay. Let's see, how's that looking? Okay, so the first thing is our 600. Let's do that. Well, that's not good. What's going on there? Why am I in? I'm in a loop. Record locking. I'm locked. That's why. I think that was why. I'm locked somewhere. Set field by name. Yeah, this I had not envisioned this when I wanted to set up this webinar. What's my target field? As I'm trying to figure this out, I see that Patrick has valuation is updated on receipt and shipment, not on sales order and purchase order creation, right? That's right. That's how I would do it, Patrick. All of the videos that I had seen, all of the accountants do it on purchasing and sales. But in reality, you could have a purchase, but it doesn't show up. So I would reserve doing the item valuation log for receipt and for shipment. I'm stuck here in a loop, and I'm in a record lock allocated. What's my calculation result? Is 600. Set field by name. I just did this before we went live. I spent about an hour making sure this worked. So somehow I have a field incorrect. The allocation, update quantity record. So I'm getting a record lock here somewhere. Item ID, but I'm not locked. I am going to, so I'm not sure what's happening with that, but I'm going to bypass that for the moment. Yeah, so much for not getting into the workspace. In the wrong one. Here we are. Oh, you know what? It's not in here. It's in create transaction record quantity. Create transaction record quantity. Create item valuation log. It's not getting here though. Find quantity record. I'm sorry about this. Somewhere I'm getting stuck here. Allocated. This is where it's yep. I don't know. I don't know. That's frustrating. I'd have to dig deeper in there, and it was working before. What's wrong here? Date zeroed out. Why am I getting caught? I'm getting caught. It's not, I'm not in the record now, so somehow when I'm writing the record, it happens when I write the record. Update quantity record. This isn't even part of this process. This is all part of the of storing quantities. Check for record locking. And this will throw off. I'm gonna see if that's going to throw off my quantity in another part of the database, but I don't think it'll affect here. So let me just move that off to the side. I remember when I was learning code, either learning FileMaker or I did a little bit of it with PHP, I always liked it when things went wrong for the presenter, because then they could debug live and it was a great learning experience. Being the presenter, I don't like it so much. Okay, let me move that off to the side. Okay, let's see. If this doesn't work, I think I'll just have to eat my hat. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that did work. My quantities in my quantity table is going to be incorrect, but we could see this now is our FIFO adjustment. And since we had, just like in the spreadsheet, we had an initial quantity of 800, and we've taken 600 out of there, and that 600 was all of one cost. So that part was right. Let me go back to the spreadsheet here and see what our next step was. We had so 600, and then we had a purchase of 2200. Oops, here we go, 2200. 2200, that's what it's supposed to look like. And then after that we have a credit of 16, or a sale of $1,600. And remember, when we sell that $1,600, we want to take this, we want to use the first part of the 200 because we're doing the FIFO. We want to go to the first in, first out. We're going to grab that, and that's going to zero this out. So let's do that. This got zeroed out here, and so we have 200 at this 320, and then this 14 at 310, 1400 at 310. And then as I do this, I'm going to bring this spreadsheet back on. As I do this, as I was coding this in FileMaker, I could go through and I could say, are my numbers correct? And it looks like they are correct. And what's my next? Now we want to do a purchase of 1,200. And that just adds a line there, and the sale of 1,000. And let me quickly finish this up. We're running. It took a little bit longer than I thought. Sale of 1,800, and I look at the spreadsheet. That looks right. Now we're going to purchase. No, I'm sorry. Another sale of 400. And that can all come from the same cost. That looks right according to the spreadsheet. I'm going to purchase 1,800. And sell 1,400. Purchase 500. Sell 200. And then that's it. Okay, so now what I could do is I could take a look at my numbers in FileMaker. Let's see what does that look like here. Okay, hopefully that shows that. So now I can show in FileMaker what my ending inventory is and what the value of that ending inventory. And then the cost of goods sold, the quantity sold is the summation of this, and then the cost of goods sold is the summation of that. And I have that, it's a little bit off screen, but I have that totaled up here in a utility. And that's how I can verify those numbers against what's here in the spreadsheet. That, let's see, let me switch over. That process is the same for LIFO, in that LIFO will do the same thing, except it will go to the most recent purchase and then work its way up. So there's less zeroing out. And then the weighted average is averaging. If you have more than one cost, you would add those and find the average. So that's the LIFO file. Again, the LIFO, this is the Perpetual LIFO, Perpetual FIFO, and it's one of 6 files that will be available and open that you can download. It will be part of this item valuation course course is going to be priced at $149, and you will be able to receive that for free for putting up with me on the webinar. And how can I get this? I think there's a way of oh, I don't know how. Oh, let me just do it this way. Here's the discount code. Let me. Here we go. Here's the discount code. So if you use item value, all lowercase, 01. Item value, all lowercase, 01. Once you put that in there, then you'll be able to access that for free. Access the course for free. That's a $149 value, and I appreciate that you're here, that you took time out of your day. This is rough for me. I need to do a lot better on this. So thanks. Obviously we're almost at an hour. I don't have time to go through the other files for Perpetual, but on Wednesday I will do the same thing for periodic, and I'll spend less time on the front data explanation. So with that, I'll hang around for a little bit, and if you have other questions, let me know. I see there's about 9 people on here. If you're on, I see Pascal is on and Patrick is on. Anybody else on? And you could say hello and let me know where you're from. Otherwise, if you have some questions, let me know. Pascal says, I wonder if I can. I think I can. Let's see. Pascal. Pascal says practice takes time. So thanks for that encouragement. When you make your 100, yeah, when I make my 100th video, I'll be great. Yeah, one can only hope. For the poor souls who will have to go suffer through the 99. But thank you for that. I thought there was a way for me to show people. There you go. Oh, yeah. Still learning the tools. Thank you so much for coming. I'll hang on here for another few minutes if you have any questions. Again, the files will be available. You'll have them for free, and they'll be open. And I will make videos. They won't be webinars, but I'll make videos where I will go through the Script Workspace and explain how I did it. And it probably doesn't need to be said, but you know, there are probably a dozen ways, maybe 24 ways, maybe more different ways you could do it. This is just one way that I've done it. So there are any number of ways to do it. Thanks, Pascal. Thanks for coming. I'm glad you joined us on Wednesday. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much. Again, I'll be here on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 10 a.m. Pacific Time, and we'll talk about periodic FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.